just going to have to see how it all plays out. All right, with that, let's move on to the New Orleans Saints. Christian, how do you feel about them bringing in Derek Carr? You think he was the missing piece? You think he's going to have an average year? Because, they finally have a real quarterback in there and not Taysom Hill. So, tight end
I'm sure this is why you wanted to kick things off with the NFC South. Just to poke at Taysom Hill.
You know it.
But no, I mean, Derek Carr, it's obviously an upgrade. I don't know if he's really going to be the missing piece. I could see the New Orleans Saints being very similar to how the Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders were when Derek Carr was there. A 9-10 win team, maybe at best. Now, they do got a lot of talent there, though. They do have a lot of talent there. I mean, it starts off, obviously, with Alvin Kamara in the backfield. And then, of course, Chris Olave, who had an awesome rookie season last year. And then what are you going to get out of Michael Thomas? I know that's going to be a talking point here later on, but I mean, that's just been a mystery really ever since Drew Brees left town. So massive upgrade at the quarterback position. I feel like the Saints had to do something. They couldn't just stand packed and run it again with Jameis Winston. And then obviously last year, Andy Dalton was there, and see what you got in Taysom Hill. Obviously we know that was just a Sean Payton. Not really sure what he was thinking with that pick or with that signing. I'll give it to you. Maybe he was just looking out for one of his guys. I don't know, but I don't know if we've ever seen anything like it. Jack of all trades, though. That's why I respect about Taysom Hill. So massive upgrade, though, at the quarterback position. And this will definitely make the Saints better. How better? We'll see, because that last stretch there last season with the Raiders, Derek Carr, I mean, he was all in on the new coaching staff, on the new regime, and I think the knife is still in his back, even though he's left town. So
yeah, he's made some comments like, I'm still a little mad at them because they made my wife cry and all this other stuff because they cut me, and it was still a little salty there. But let me tell you what, I am ecstatic that Derek Carr is a Saint and not a New York Jet.
Because it went your way.
Because it went my way. If he would have been a Jet, I would have been ecstatic that he was a New York Jet. Not really. I'm going to be honest with you. And this was a lot of the discourse over Jets Twitter. And everybody was like, you know what, man? I can't believe this. Like, just signed Derek Carr already. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to be here. Blah, 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 blah. We want somebody who wants us. Aaron's taking his time, dragging his feet. Those people are nowhere to be found now.
I'm sure.
Where did they all go? Come out of hiding. Let's talk about it. Because now everybody's ecstatic, and the expectations have never been higher for the Jets because they took Rodgers over Carr. I think New Orleans Saints fans, though, are still excited they have somebody who can give them a steady hand at the position. Derek Carr is better than competency. Derek Carr is better than Andy Dalton. He's better than Jameis Winston. He's better than Taysom Hill, but I wasn't going to say it, but I had to just – all the options they have, he's better. So I know they're excited for him and what he can bring to that offense down there. And you kind of touched on it. That offense they have, Mike Thomas, Chris Olave. You miss my boy Juwan Johnson, the tight end, who was like, he's pretty big. He can catch. He can run. He does everything he needs to do well for a receiving tight end. He kind of came on late last year. The only reason I know is because I needed a tight end, and he was lighting it up down there in New Orleans. So I think they're really excited for what they have for him, and they still do have Taysom Hill at tight end, and he can catch and play rugby out there, So tight end 4 down there is pretty good. And you hit on Alvin Kamara, who may or may not start the season on the suspended list for beating up some dude for some reason. I don't remember why he did it, but
yeah, I know it was at the Pro Bowl though.
Yeah, NFL don't like it when you beat up people on camera. So, he might.
I don't know. Ray Rice got away pretty clean initially.
I was gonna say I don't know if he did, bro.
Initially.
So with that, Mike Thomas, does he ever play again? because even though he's been out there looking like a transformer and like running around a little bit, he still hasn't fully practiced. And I expect to see that trend probably continue in the training camp when that comes here.
Yeah, that's that's a curious case right there. Curious case of Mike Thomas. I mean, you can't really ask for a much better situation than you're in right now. I mean, yeah, you're not playing with Aaron Rodgers, but you got a pretty damn good quarterback there now. And if that's the only reason why you weren't practicing in the past and why you've been dragging this out because you didn't truly believe in Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton, I'm not saying that's the case. I've not heard that anywhere. But this has just been a really, really weird situation because we're talking about a guy 2-3 years ago. We were talking about, hey, you know what? He doesn't really do anything too flashy, but the guy puts up numbers, and he was an absolute beast when Drew Brees was throwing him the football. So, I mean, I gotta think we see him play again. I gotta think that we see him play for the Saints, because you're not going to find a much better situation with the wide receivers that you're surrounded around. That obviously will make your job better, playing alongside a Chris Olave, and they got someone else too that I know I'm forgetting about. But anyways, you're not going to leave New Orleans to find a much better situation. And sure, I don't think you're really in a position to demand a trade elsewhere. No other team is really going to give too much for you. You're kind of damaged goods right now until we see you on the field and you prove yourself again.
Yeah. And we don't know if that's ever going to happen. I mean, I really expect him to maybe ramp it up, but a little bit in training camp. I don't expect to see him out there in the preseason game. So we have to wait till week 1 to see, is he going to be able to knock the rust off fast enough to get back on the field and actually get back into that top wide receiver conversation here.
Do you think the signing, while we're still talking about the Saints offense, do you think the signing of Jamal Williams in the offseason, does that give you any thoughts on how the Saints may view Alvin Kamara, and not saying getting rid of him, but this pending suspension that may be?
It doesn't, because I think in Green Bay or Detroit last year, he was in Detroit, Jamal Williams was most commonly used as a goal line back.
Right.
So whenever DeAndre Swift would get him to the 1 yard line, couldn't punch in, they put Jamal Williams in there and he get touchdowns. Didn't he lead the league in rushing touchdowns?
Yeah. Had over 20.
So I'm sure they're just like, we need somebody back here who, when things get tough, he can punch it in for sure.
That's probably right.
I mean, they could have just put Taysom Hill back there, but So before we move on to the Saints draft here, are you ready to admit Taysom Hill is not a good quarterback and just needs to play a different position, personal punt protector?
Sure. I'm willing to admit that he's not a very good quarterback, but in terms of I'll even say this: he ain't a quarterback. But in terms of non-quarterbacks in the league, he might have the best potential playing quarterback, if that makes any sense.
I would rather have Christian McCaffrey as my quarterback than Taysom Hill.
You might lose that game then.
You're not wrong. I'm sure the 49ers are also in that same position. All right, so looking at the draft here, they picked 29th in the first round here. They took Brian Brzee, defensive tackle from Clemson. Now, this was a guy who they thought could go earlier, like a top 15 pick. Like, I had a lot of people say that the Jets could probably grab him here. But he dealt with some tough personal situations in college, and he had a bunch of different injuries here. So that last rough year kind of dropped his stock a little bit, and he ended up falling to the Saints at 29. How do you think he can – do you think he can return to form? How do you think he will perform? What are your thoughts on Brian Brzee?
I remember heading into last year college season. I mean, he was projected to be a top 5, top 10 pick. That's how highly regarded he was. And then, like you said, he dealt with some injuries, also with some personal matters, and here he is falling to pick number 29 to the Saints. I got to admit, it gives me a slight pause that the Saints were the team to draft him, just because well, really, first round picks besides Chris Olave last year in general, just it seems like they always miss on him. It seems like they always whiff on the first round draft pick in New Orleans. And, you know, I remember they gave up a treasure for Marcus Davenport, someone I actually liked and was kind of a fan of. I mean, they gave up quite a bit. I don't know if I would have gone that heavy for him. And I remember the day he was drafted, you're like, he's going to be a bust. And he did not show anything in his time in New Orleans. I think he had one decent year where he had like maybe 8 sacks, 9 sacks. I think he may have had double-digit sacks one year, but then he fell off the face of the earth the last 2 seasons. He's on a 1-year deal. I think Minnesota. I could be wrong on that. So, I mean, can't really paint it with a broad brush like that, but the fact that the Saints were the team to draft him kind of gave me a slight pause. Now, hopefully he's able to learn a thing or two from Cam Jordan, and he is able to can't really raise his stock now that he's already been drafted, but hopefully he could turn into that player that people thought he was going to be heading into the college football season last year.
Yeah, hopefully he can, but you made an interesting point here about the Saints and their first round picks. Now, I'm looking back on the history of their first round picks, and they got some good people in here, right? Like Deuce McAllister.
Lattimore's a good one.
Latimer, I'm going way back, like 2000. Okay. Like Ricky Williams, Deuce McAllister.
Ricky Williams, if I'm not mistaken, that was their one and only pick that year.
The one and only pick because they traded their entire draft class for that pick, which is wild.
Yeah. Shout out Mike Ditka.
Shout out Mike Ditka. So then they got Reggie Bush, who wasn't necessarily a success in the NFL, but he was electric. Robert Meacham was a really good receiver for him. Malcolm Jenkins, Cam Jordan, Mark Ingram, Brandon Cooks, still in the league. They took him in 2014, so that's a success. Andrews Pete, Sheldon Rankins, former Jet, Marcus Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, and then it gets hairy after Ryan Ramczyk. 2017, they had that amazing draft class, I think included maybe C.J. Gardner-Johnson in that draft class too. But after that, Marcus Davenport 2018, no pick in 2019, Cesar Ruiz, center from Michigan, Peyton Turner, good. Defensive end from Houston. Chris Olave is a stud. That's a home run. Then they took Trevor Penning last year, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa University, which I liked, and I thought like he can be good for the Jets. However, I didn't think that was a good first-round pick for them. And then this year, Brian Brzee. So here's to hoping that he can turn it around and get back to their good drafting ways, but we'll see here. And speaking of the draft, they also picked up Jake Haener, quarterback from Fresno State in the 4th round. And I don't know about you, but I've been seeing some comparisons to Derek Carr out there. So, you know, they signed Derek Carr as a veteran. They drafted this guy as a rookie. Who better to learn from than the person we're comp to?
And I'm not going to sit here and say I studied Jake Haener tape. I know there was some hype heading in. I think around like the Senior Bowl, he had a really good Senior Bowl and combine, whatever. But is he really compared to Derek Carr, or is it because they both went to Fresno State? Come on.
I think it's because they both went to Fresno State, but I think they said he has the moxie that Derek Carr displayed at Fresno State. Like, that's pretty much it, though. Derek Carr he's had some really good seasons, some good top 10 seasons, and I think if Jake Haener could be half of that, he'd be happy.
And then quickly, a sleeper pick that I liked. I think it was a 5th or 6th round pick for the Saints, linebacker Nick Anderson from Tulane. I think that's going to be a pretty good player. Maybe not year one, but down the line for the Saints or somewhere in the league. He was a guy that played. I mean, Tulane last season, just in general, had an awesome year. Took down your USC Trojans in the bowl game, and this is a guy that had a lot of success both at the Senior Bowl as well, and then put up some crazy combine numbers. But Nick Anderson might be a name to tuck away for the next couple of years and see where he's at.
Tulane can put out some talent. They got that linebacker Nick Anderson. They got Tajay Spears.
I think he was my favorite running back in the draft this year. Tennessee.
At Tennessee.
Which Hassan Haskins might be on his way out, so we'll see.
That man is definitely out. I don't know how he stays employed by the Tennessee Titans, but Tajay Spears was pretty good. I think he fell a little bit.
My bad.
Legit from Tulane?
Yeah.
Did not know that. There's something new every day. And there's some hype around their quarterback this year. They say he's a sleeper, but he can actually play. So